Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you all to the 18th Annual Tallgrass Film Festival. My name is Hannah Bothner, and I am the short film coordinator for the fest. Thank you all for watching and for tuning in. We also would like to extend a special thank you to all of our sponsors. We could not be doing this without you. If you're enjoying your Tallgrass experience, please let everyone know on Facebook and Instagram, tag us at Tallgrass Film, and use the hashtag Tallgrass2020. I'd like to welcome to the Zoom today, Clay Marshall Pruitt, director and writer of Our Place Together. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh my gosh, of course. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to get to talk to you about this film. My first question for you was, what was your inspiration and reason for wanting to make this film?
Oh, geez. I know this is like a softball question that I should have a very clear answer for, but you know, the inspiration I think came from a great number of places. From a personal standpoint, unfortunately, both of my parents have had cancer in their lives. My mom passed away a number of years ago from it. My dad is currently under treatment for it, and it just sort of forced me to consider my own genetic future and what my potential genetic baggage would be if I were to have biological children.
Mm-hmm.
And I had at one point considered being a donor for a lesbian couple that had wanted a child, and then once my father's diagnosis came through, they sort of weren't as interested anymore, which was a really interesting experience. And so I wanted to explore that in a narrative form, and I think in particular discussing the idea of parenthood and sort of the different things and challenges that come along with that in the context of a gay relationship, I think is not commonly seen, and I really wanted to tap into that and explore that a bit.
Absolutely. I want to talk about casting next because you had Rory O'Malley and Elliot Knight, two incredible actors, and they do such an amazing job. It really struck me on my rewatch at times how little dialogue there is, but how much they do with just their faces, their expression, their body language. I'd love to know how you landed on them for casting, how you got them.
That's a great question. So it was really important to me from the beginning that I cast openly gay actors. I am a firm believer in in representation matters, and I thought also that they would bring some real authenticity to the roles. And as you pointed out, because there was such a lack of dialogue, there needed to be a deeper emotional understanding of the characters and the material that I thought, first of all, just being gay and being able to connect in that way would sort of unleash that. And then I actually worked with a casting director that I had worked with on a few projects in the past, and she, recommended. Well, we went through many lists of openly gay actors. Who's right for this? Who's right for this? And as we sort of watched various different materials for folks, both Rory and Elliot stood out immediately to me. And luckily, they were actually my first choices. And I simply just wrote them a letter explaining why I thought they would be excellent for the roles. And Leslie, my casting director, got that and the script over to their representation. And both of them immediately responded and were moved by the script and wanted to meet and discuss. And then it was kind of a done deal after that.
And Rory just had a baby with his husband not too long ago, right?
So yes, actually they had just adopted Jimmy, their son, a few months prior to us shooting, actually.
Oh, wow.
So it was a very, very new and very real experience for him to be a parent in that shooting process. And it was also the first time that he was away from him after having adopted him. So that was new, and there was no cell reception where we were shooting. So he was a ball of anxiety for those reasons, and I think that just added to his performance.
Absolutely. It's weird, like little cacophony of events that come together and make the performance so wonderful. I was actually going to ask you about the filming location and filming in the wilderness, the challenges that came with that. How'd you find that incredible location?
So the challenges indeed. So that location, I had actually camped at a year prior to shooting there. But my producers and I kind of had it in the back of my head. It's just such a beautiful place. But I knew it was extremely remote. And but my producers and I did an extensive location scout in various different places. We're all based in LA, so like trying to shoot an outdoor film in the summer, we shot in August, where there was running water and like significant enough to like play in the story, was very difficult to find when it's like the lowest water time of the year. So we looked around quite a bit, and then ultimately I was like, this is just it ticks most of the boxes. We don't have to move locations. We can do it all in this one spot. We're not going to be disturbed. There's not a lot of people out there. So, I think we should like try to make this work. And we did. It definitely came with some challenges. It was over 100 degrees every day we were shooting. The set itself was about an hour drive away from where we were actually staying. And there was like yellow jackets stings that happened, and there was a lot of different things that we had to combat with, but it definitely worked out in the end. So
absolutely. And I'm curious about filming on that I don't know what you call it, like tiny little hill mountain thing, especially because we get such a beautiful shot of both of them at the same time. I'd love to know how you filmed that final piece there.
Actually that was our first day of shooting on that rock face, and you can't quite tell from that shot, but it is a massive uplift that sort of comes out of this valley, and there's a lot more above where they are, and it's very picturesque. It's very grand. The slope is enough of an angle that you can sort of walk up and down it and whatnot, but it is definitely, there's some areas that are a little tricky when you're like moving equipment around. I will say that it was maybe a blessing or a curse that we chose to shoot that the first day, because it was so hot. That was our only location that really didn't have tree cover, so like everybody was really under the sun. And it's a little treacherous being on that slope. So I think in some ways, like, good thing we got the worst part of it out of the way first. But I knew I wanted to incorporate it. It was actually written in the script that there was a sort of grand vista reveal, and to show the real distance that had grown between them by the end of the film, and the sort of context their context in nature and in the space that they're in.
Yeah, absolutely. I had to go back and rewatch that last scene, because I was like, oh, there's no dialogue in that final scene. They find out, and it's just like an emotional journey. Can you talk about writing that and deciding to not have dialogue in that final scene?
I think for me personally, I always gravitate towards performances and stories that don't rely on words. And that's not to say that I don't love beautifully written dialogue. I do, but I also think it's incredibly dictated by the story. And for me, like, these two had been, you know, in the context of their characters, they'd been together for many years. They'd gone through a lot of emotional journeys prior to this, which I tried to reflect with the different flashbacks. And when you have that kind of history and that kind of connection with somebody, you don't need words. There's so much that you can say to that person in your life with just an expression.
Yeah.
And I also think, especially in that moment, there is so many peaks and valleys in what that news brings that me, myself, I think I would be at a loss for words. In that moment, I don't think I would be able to articulate what I was feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. So something else along the lines of writing the film, you're portraying Huntington's disease here, right? That's what we see on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
What was the research process like, and how did you decide how to portray that in the film?
Yeah, thank you for that. So my dad is a doctor, and I grew up in a small town where he was like the town doctor, and had to really deal with all kinds of cases of diseases and injuries and all, the whole gambit. And he would often teach me about this, that, or the other. And I remember being, I think maybe middle school or early high school, learning about Huntington's disease, and the sort of genetic nature of it, and that it is ultimately a death sentence. And more than that, it's a really, really brutal final few years. And there's a whole lot of history in the community about whether or not to have children, whether or not to get tested if one of your parents did have Huntington's disease, how much that will change your life. Just knowing if you are in fact, destined for this disease to take over. And for me, like, I said, I wanted to explore this sort of genetic baggage element that is personal to me. I do not have any family history of Huntington's disease, but it was the most tangible sort of realistic portrayal of a test. There's not currently a test that can tell you you are going to have cancer and you're going to, struggle and whatnot, which if there were, that would probably have been what I chose. But I needed it to be something that's very tangible. And I also think through the research, because I have been, for lack of a better term, kind of fascinated by Huntington's disease and the community that has sprung up around it, that for many, many years, and have always kind of circled back to it as such an interesting kind of subculture in a interesting way. So I think part of me too, just because oftentimes when I would talk about it, people don't know about it, and so it also felt like an opportunity to raise awareness about the disease and put it into context of what I hoped would be the most sort of realistic people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that something really interesting too is the lack of technology when you're dealing with a scary diagnosis like this in the film. I think we're so reliant now on being able to Google ourselves into pure anxiety. So was it just kind of a happy accident that you were setting this in a place that wouldn't have cell reception, or was that kind of like all fueled together.
Yeah, no, that was intentional.
Okay.
Because and you see early in the film, um, when Rory pulls out his phone and starts searching, but then has no service, um, that is exactly indicating what you're talking about, the impulsive nature for us to just like go down that WebMD rabbit hole and make everything worse. And that, you know, that is sort of the impulse for them to come on this camping trip, that we need to get you away to where there is no cell reception, to where you can just process, and we can just process this, you know, on our own. And and you know, that's so yes, that was a very, very intentional part of it. And also, like, as I tried to indicate with the title and the flashbacks, like, this is their place that they have come many times before to get away, to just be with each other, to connect, to have really lovely times, and to get through the hard stuff. And this is just the latest version of that retreat.
Yeah, of avoiding the bad news, but then also missing the potential good news. You know, they're maybe deciding if that's good news or not.
Right. Well, I think the baby news at the end, spoilers, um, is that I think it is layered in happiness and absolute tragedy.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't see them necessarily avoiding the bad news of the diagnosis. It's more of like, let's just cut out the distractions and just handle this without social media, without, you know, without the internet and the anxiety that brings.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you so much for talking with me today about your film, and I want to thank you for your film too. It's so beautiful and
well,
wonderful.
thank you for programming it. I really wish I could be there in Wichita to be there. I have heard so many wonderful, wonderful things about Tallgrass, and it is definitely a little devastating that I can't be there. But you know, everybody's in the same boat. I'll just have to make another film that y'all like.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, we'll get you back in the future. Just send me your films, and we'll get you back. Well, I wanted to ask on that note, my last question for you is, what's next for you? What's next for your film? Anything that you want people to check out, follow you on Instagram, Twitter, website, anything like that?
Sure. So you can follow the film on Instagram. The handle is Our Place Together Short. And we're still very much doing our festival run right now, our virtual festival run, which has been, you know, I'm sure for all of your filmmakers, is just an interesting journey. And so just continuing that with this film, I am working on developing this into a longer feature-length version. So I'm in the sort of early writing process of that, and continuing to produce other work as well. And I also am the head of acquisitions and programming at Seed and Spark. So we're doing a lot of different things right now in supporting independent creators as best we can during this time. So I encourage everybody to also check out Seed and Spark if you haven't. And yeah, that's otherwise just trying to survive, at least until after the election.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get past next couple of weeks.
Exactly.
And we'll see where we are. Exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much for talking with us today, Clay. And thank you all out there so much for watching and for watching the films in our festival. You mean the world to us that you're continuing to experience independent cinema during everything that's going on, and keep watching films.
Absolutely. Thank you.